Dice rollers are needed for lots of games. If you want to have one always at hand, then nothing can match the Excel dice roller, which allows you to toss virtual dice. Take a chance or risk. Toss the dice. In all cases, you are about to learn some amazing Excel tips and tricks that can be applied to so many work situations, far beyond this dice roller game. I am Nabil Murad. In this tutorial, I show you how to create a beautiful dice roller. I'll be using functions, formatting, macro, protection, and lots of tricks along the way. Tossing dice returns two random numbers between 1 and 6. Each facet of a dice will show a circle in one or more of 7 possible positions. So let's have a close look at each circle. The upper left and lower right positions are common between numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The upper right and lower left positions are common between numbers 4, 5, 6. The middle right and middle left positions appear only with number 6. The middle center position is common between numbers 1, 3, 5. So we can represent the positions in a grid of 3 columns and 3 rows. Our goal is to create for each die a randomizing function that returns a number between 1 and 6. In a grid of 3 by 3, we want one or more circles to appear in the position corresponding to the random numbers. We will be using a simple trick to convert a character into a circle. We'll apply some formatting and then create a macro to trigger the dice rolling. If we get the same number on either side, that's a double rolling with a probability of 6 out of 36 different outcomes. In such case, a congratulations message will pop up showing the name of the returned combination. Now let's build our project from ground up in Excel. Here is my start file. You can download the exercise file and follow along by clicking on the link below this video. This workbook includes 2 worksheets. I'm in the Resources worksheet, where you can see small pictures representing the 6 facets of a dice. I also inserted a bigger picture which shows the possible positions for appearance of a circle on a die based upon the number returned. So let's have a close look. The upper left and the lower right position, the red circle, will appear in case the number is 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. While the green circle in the upper right and the lower left positions will appear only if the number is 4 or 5 or 6. The middle left and the middle right, the yellow circle, will appear only with number 6, while the blue circle in the middle center position will appear in case the number is 1 or 3 or 5. I wrote these numbers in a grid of 3 by 3. So I'm going to use these numbers in my calculation. If the dice return the same number, then in this case we call it a double rolling, and each one of the double rolling options has a name. I googled these names and I brought them here. Now let's go to the Start worksheet where I'll be creating my project. All what I did in this worksheet, I adjusted the row height for rows 1 to 10. If I select rows 1 to 10 and I click on the lower border, I adjusted the height to 40 pixels. You can do that either by dragging or by going to the Format menu and select row height. For the columns, I adjusted the width of columns from A to P. If I hover over the border of the last column and click, you can read in the tooltip that it says 150 pixel. You can also do that from the format menu or do it by dragging. If I scroll further to the right, this is my real working area. This is the kitchen where I'll be preparing everything for my project. For columns Q to Z, I adjusted the width of these columns to 40 pixels. What I want to do, in a range of 3 columns by 3 rows, I want to write the number that will trigger the circle in the same relative position. So I'm selecting the cell in the upper left and press Ctrl and select the cell in the lower right. And the numbers that can trigger a circle in these positions are number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hit Ctrl Enter, and then I select the upper right and the lower left, and the numbers that can trigger the appearance of a circle in these positions are number 4, 5, 6. I hit Ctrl Enter. I select the middle left and the middle right while pressing Ctrl, and the number that can trigger a circle here is number 6, so I type 6 followed by Ctrl Enter, and finally I'm selecting the middle center position and I'll be typing 1, 3, 5. These are the 3 possibilities for the appearance of a circle in this position, and then I hit Enter. My next step is to create for each die a randomizing function. This randomizing function will be returning any number between 1 and 6. I can use one of 2 functions for this situation. I can either use a rand_between function, which is a classic function, or I can use the rand_array function, which is a dynamic array function. The rand_array function will require 5 arguments. It's a very useful function, but I don't really need it for this situation. So I select 2 cells, cell V3 and cell R3, while pressing the Control key, and I start creating my randomizing function, equal rand_between. And then I hit Tab. It asks me for a bottom number, which is 1, and then comma. The top number will be 6. I close the bracket, and then I hit Control Enter. The randomizing function is a volatile function. Every time I hit the F9 key, it recalculates and it returns a new set of numbers. And that's what I'll be using to simulate a real die. Now I'm going to select a range of 3 by 3. And I want to create a function that searches for the result of the first randomizing function in the same relative position of my active cell in the range where I put the numbers. So I'll be using a search function, equal search, and then I hit Tab. I'm searching for the result of the first randomizing function. Because I'm copying, I need to lock by hitting F4, and then I hit comma. Where do you search for it? I'm in the upper left corner, so I click in the upper left in the range where I created the numbers, and I close the bracket. To populate this function, I hit Control Enter. My search function returns the position of the number in the corresponding cell from AA4 to AC6, but if it doesn't find it, then it will be returning a value error. Here, when you see these numbers signed, these are the value errors. This is a value error. I'll hit Ctrl Z. I want to convert the number and value error into trues and false, and that requires selecting the whole range one more time. I put it in the edit mode F2, and I'll be wrapping my search function in an isNumber function, so I'll be typing right after the equal sign isNumber, and then I hit Tab, and I close the bracket. When I hit Control Enter, I'll be populating my function. Now all what I'm getting is a bunch of trues and false. I'm going to expand the column so that you can read trues and false. A true means that the number exists. A false means that the number does not exist. My next step will be converting the trues and false in a way that it returns a certain character if it's true, and it doesn't return anything if it's false. So I'm going to undo the changing column width, Control Z. I'll be selecting the whole range one more time. I hit the F2, and I want to wrap this function in a conditional if function. So I type at the beginning, equal if, and then I hit Tab. If all this part is returning a true, then what do you want? I want to return lowercase letter n. So I type comma, and in double quotes I type lowercase n, and then I close the double quotation. I'll be explaining why I selected n. But for now, what do you want to do if the logical function is returning false? I type comma, and I want double quote, and I close the bracket. Let's populate the function by hitting Control Enter. Now look at this, because I have number 1, it's returning n at the position where the circle should appear. So if I hit F9 to recalculate, look at this, 2 and then 3, so my function is working fine. I need to repeat the same exact steps for the second randomizing function. So let's do it fast. Equal if, and then I hit tab, is number, and then I hit tab, I'm searching, so I hit tab, I'm searching for the second randomizing function, and I lock it by hitting F4. I hit comma. Where do you search for it? I want to search for it in AA4. I can select it, so I select the cell above, and I use my down pointing arrow. I close the bracket for the search function. I close the bracket for the is number, and that will be the first argument of my if function. And then I hit comma. If it is true, what do you want? I need lowercase n. So in double quotation, I type lowercase n, and then I hit comma. Otherwise, I want nothing, double quote, and I close the bracket for the if function. To populate my function, I hit Control Enter. Because I have 6 from the second randomizing function, I see n in the correct position. My next step is to convert letter n by changing the font type into a circle. So I start by selecting the first range. I press Ctrl and click and drag to select the second range, and I go to the Home tab in the font group, and I want to select a font that starts with letter W. Now if I click on the down pointing arrow, the font that I'm looking for is called the Webdings font. And here is the Webdings font. I select it, and look at that. Look at the preview. Even before clicking on it, it shows me the circles. I selected this one. Using combination of character and a font, I could have used letter L. I could have used an equal sign with a different font, but I preferred this one. My next step is to adjust the alignment. On the Home tab, we have tools for the vertical alignment and for the horizontal alignment. Let's start with the vertical alignment. I select the top row, and I want this one to be bottom aligned. And then I select the middle row, and this one should have a middle alignment. And then I select the bottom row, and this one should have a top alignment. I finished with the vertical alignment. Let's go to the horizontal alignment. I select the leftmost column on either side by pressing Ctrl, and this one should be right aligned. I select the center column on either side, and then this one should be centered. And then I select the right column on either side by pressing Ctrl, and this one should be left aligned. I would have finished the alignment. If we get the same number from the two randomizing functions, that's called a double rolling. And what I would like to do is to prepare for creating a message box that displays the name of the combination of the double rolling. And to do that, in cell AA19, I'm going to ask, are these two numbers equal? If they are equal, I want to use a VLOOKUP function that extracts the name of the combination. Let's do that. I'm selecting cell AA19, and in this cell I'll be creating a conditional if function. Equal if, and there I hit tab. If this cell R3 equals V3, where I have the randomizing function, if they are equal, what do you want to do? Then I hit comma. I want to extract the name, so I use a VLOOKUP function. I could have used an XLOOKUP function also, but I'll go with the classic VLOOKUP function. I hit the tab key. What's your lookup value? My lookup value is any one of the two randomizing functions, comma. Where do you look for it? I look for it in this entire range, starting from Z12 to AA17, and then I hit comma. What's your column index number? From which column you need a return value? Then I type 2 because I need a return value from the second column, and then I type comma. Are you looking at an exact match or an approximate match? This is an exact match, so I'll be typing false or 0. I closed the bracket for the VLOOKUP function, and that was the true part of the if function. What if the two numbers are not identical? Then I type a comma. In this case, I want double quote, and I close the bracket for my if function. Now if I hit enter, I don't get anything because the two randomizing functions are returning two different numbers. Let's test by hitting F9, where I get the same number on either side. Now I was able to extract the name of the double rolling. In cell AA21, I want to prepare for a message box. The message box will include some text combined to the result of my VLOOKUP function. I'll be using a conditional if statement, equal if, and then I hit tab, and I say if this cell having the VLOOKUP function equals a blank, that means the two numbers are not identical, then in this case I type a comma. What do you want? I want nothing, double quote. Otherwise, what do you want? I want to deliver some text. Text must be included in double quotes. So I type a double quotation and then congratulations, exclamation mark, double rolling. I want to close the double quotes and I want to join to the result of my VLOOKUP function. So I'll be typing Shift 7. But I don't want the result of my VLOOKUP function to be on the same row, so I want to push it on a second row as if I'm hitting Alt-Enter when typing in the same cell to put the text on a second row. And to do this, I'm going to use a character function. What does the character function do? The character, or CHAR, it's a function that takes a number between 100 and 255 and returns a corresponding character. So I'm going to type CHAR and then I hit tab. Character number 10 pushes what comes next to a new line. And then I want to join to the result of the VLOOKUP function. Then I'll be typing Shift 7 on my keyboard. Then I click on cell AA19 having my VLOOKUP function. I close the bracket for the if function and then I hit enter. I don't see anything because actually I don't have the same number, but I can test. So if I hit F9 to test, whenever I get the same number on either side, then in this case I should see my message, and here is my message. It appears as if it is on one single line, but later on when I put it in a text box, then it will appear on two lines. Now we prepared for the final appearance of our project. My next step will be copying the two ranges. I select the first one and then I hit Ctrl C. I move to the left side of my worksheet and somewhere to the left side I want to paste, but I don't want to paste as regular. I want to paste as a linked picture. A picture is floating on top of the grid. I could do that by clicking on the down arrow of the paste command and select the last option in the last row, or I can simply do it by hitting Ctrl V. And from the options tag, I click on the down pointing arrow of the options tag and select the rightmost option in the last row, which is a linked picture. I will be repeating for the second one. I go to the second range. I select the range and then Ctrl C to copy. And then I go to the left side. I hit Ctrl V and from the options tag, I select the rightmost option in the last row, which is pasting as a linked picture. Now we have two pictures. Each one of them is floating on top of the grid. These are the pictures that will represent the dice. I want to resize them, I want to reposition them, I want to rotate them, I want them to have an outer frame. To save some time, I created that outer frame, which is a rounded rectangle, and I have that outer frame in the resource sheet. I'm going to click and get it. So I click on the first one, press Ctrl and click on the second one and Ctrl C to copy, and I go back to the start worksheet. I want to paste the two shapes, Ctrl V. Each one of these will represent a die. So I want to select the picture, the linked picture. I want to reposition it in a way that it aligns with the outer frame, which is a rounded rectangle. I click and drag to resize them, and I think they are perfectly aligned right now. I'm going to do the same for the second linked picture. By the way, if we have difficulty selecting the picture or selecting the rectangle, then we can use the selection pane available on the Format tab of the ribbon. If you click on Shape Format, here is the selection pane. The shortcut for triggering the selection pane is Alt F10. I can select a picture, one of the two linked picture. I can select any one of the two rectangles with rounded corners. So it's easy for me to select one or more element if I press Ctrl, so that I have more control on repositioning them. I select the second picture and then I move it. I want to resize it and I'm resizing it. It looks like it's perfect. I want to check. So I select picture number 2, which is the first one, and then I press Ctrl and click on the corresponding rectangle. I see the sizing handles overlapping each other, which means they are perfectly aligned. Then in this case, I go to the picture format. I want to group them together. To the right side, I click on the down pointing arrow for group and I click on group. I'll do the same for the second one. I select the picture. I press Ctrl and click on the rectangle. And now I want to group them together. I click on the down pointing arrow for group and I select group. Now both of them become one single entity. I can move them together. I'm going to resize them a little bit. Both of them are of the same size. I'm going to use the rotation handle at the top and rotate each one of the two squares. I can reposition them the way I like. I don't need the selection pane, so I'm going to close it. My next step is to create a text box that displays the message we created earlier with the VLOOKUP function whenever we get the same number on either side. To create a text box, I go to the Insert tab of the ribbon, and to the right side, in the text group, I select Text Box, and now I click and drag to position my text box. To link my text box, I have to put it in the edit mode. And to do this, I hit the F2 key. Where I hit the F2 key, two things will happen. In the lower left corner, you will read Edit. I'm in the edit mode. And at the same time, you will see the blinking cursor in the formula bar. So I'll be typing an equal sign. And to link it to cell AA21, I scroll to the right and click on cell AA21 and then I hit enter. Now let's go and look at the text box. I don't see anything because I don't have the same number on either side. So I'm going to hit the F9 until I get the same number. This is double rolling. That's wonderful, which means the functionality is working. Now let's change the font size and type for the text box and get rid of the outer border. So I select the text box. I want to change the font. I'll make it impact. I'll make it bigger. I can resize my box. I want to center the alignment and I want to get rid of the outer border. So I go to Shape Format and then for the Shape Outline, no outline. I'm done. Every time I want to toss the dice, I have to hit F9. Instead of doing this manually by hitting F9, I want to create a macro that refreshes the randomizing function in order to generate a new set of numbers. And to do that, I need to go to the Developer tab of the ribbon. If you don't have the Developer tab, you can right-click on any tab, click on Customize the ribbon. The Excel Options dialog box opens, and here you check the box for Developer, and then you hit OK. I'm going to hit Cancel because I already have it. I go to the Developer tab of the ribbon. To the left side, you have a group for code. I'm not writing a VBA code in this tutorial, but all what I want to do is to check Use Relative Reference. So make sure that this is highlighted, which means I'm recording a relative macro. Now to start the recording, I click on Record Macro. The Record Macro dialog box opens, and here I need to provide a name to my macro. I'm going to name my macro dice. A macro name cannot have spaces. Note that whenever you create a macro or you create a VBA code, That means you have to save your file in a macro-enabled Excel format. You cannot save it in the regular .xlsx format. You have to save it in a .xlsm format. So I hit OK, and I'll be in the process of recording. This is an extremely simple macro. All what it does is that it refreshes, it recalculates the worksheet. So to do that, I click on the Formulas tab of the ribbon, and to the right side of the Formulas tab, I click on Calculate Sheet. By doing this, as if I'm hitting the F9 key, I'm recalculating the randomizing function. And now I'm done with the macro. I want to stop the recording, so I go to the Developer tab one more time and click on Stop Recording. I didn't create a shortcut for this macro because I want to have a picture, and when I click on this picture, it triggered the functionality of this macro. And I have a picture in the resource sheet. You can use your own picture if you want. I'm going to select this picture, Control-C to copy. I go to the Start worksheet and I'm going to paste it, Control-V to paste. I can position it, I can resize it the way I like. And once you are satisfied with the size and position, now we want to add the functionality. And with the picture selected, I can right-click on the border, and from the right-click menu, I'll be selecting Assign Macro. I just have one single macro, which is the dice macro. I'm going to click on dice and then hit OK. I want to deselect the picture by clicking outside, and now this picture is not a regular picture, it's a functioning one, because if I position my mouse on top of it, the mouse pointer changes to a pointing finger, denoting that there is a built-in functionality, and with every click it will trigger the macro. The macro will recalculate the randomizing function, which will be returning a new set of numbers, and I'll see the numbers on my squares or my dice. So when I click, I'm generating new numbers, and with every click I have a new set of numbers. If I get the same combination, the same number on either side, the message pops up, congratulations, double rolling, and the name of this combination is boxcars. The final step of this project, to avoid unintentional changes to your workbook, then in this case I need to apply protection, and to apply protection I go to the Review tab of the ribbon, and here I click on Protect Worksheet. The Protect Worksheet dialog box opens. If you wish, you can provide a password and you will have to reconfirm it. I'm not going to do that. Here it's protecting the worksheet and contents of locked cells. What are the locked cells? These are all the cells of the worksheet, 17,179,869,184 cells, which is equal to 2 to the power of 34. All these cells are locked by default, so I want to lock the entire worksheet. But at the same time, I don't want to be able to select the locked cells, so I'll be taking the check away from Select Locked Cells. And when I hit OK, now I cannot click anywhere. The only place where I can click is the dice itself to trigger the functionality. And if you enjoyed this training video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel and ring the bell to be notified when new tutorials are released. The best is yet to come. Thank you for watching and see you next time.